The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with panic. Hundreds of alien representatives filled the massive chamber, their voices mixing into a storm of worried whispers. At the center of the room, a hologram showed a terrifying sight: entire solar systems vanishing into a strange purple-black void. Captain James Miller stood quietly in the back, watching. As Earth's military representative, he had learned to observe first and speak later. The humans had only joined the Council 5 years ago, and most alien species still viewed them as the galaxy's cowards. After all, humans were the ones who always asked about safety protocols and escape plans. The Council leader, a tall being with silver skin, raised all 4 of his arms for silence. "The quantum anomaly has consumed 3 more systems," he announced, his voice grave. "It moves faster than we predicted. At this rate, it will reach the core worlds in less than 6 months." The crowd erupted again. A warrior race representative, covered in natural armor plates, stepped forward. "Then we must attack. Send our strongest ships to destroy it." "We tried that," another voice called out. The 3rd fleet of the Dragon Empire went in. None returned. Miller watched as, one by one, the greatest civilizations of the galaxy made their excuses. The warrior races claimed their weapons had no effect. The ancient races said their mystical powers couldn't touch it. The scientific species argued that more observation was needed, from a safe distance. "What about the humans?" someone finally asked, almost as a joke. "They're always talking about safety measures. Maybe they have an idea." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Miller felt hundreds of eyes turn to him, most filled with mockery. But he didn't mind. He had spent 20 years in space exploration, and he knew something these aliens didn't. Sometimes the most dangerous mission required the most careful approach. He stepped forward, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet hall. "Earth will volunteer to investigate the anomaly," he said simply. The laughter stopped. The council leader leaned forward. "You, the humans, your ships are the slowest in the galaxy because you insist on triple-layered shields. Your exploration missions take twice as long because you stop to run safety checks every few light years." Miller nodded. "Yes, and that's exactly why we'll succeed where others failed." He pressed a button on his wrist computer, and a new hologram appeared. "We've been studying the anomaly's patterns since it first appeared, looking for the safe approach while everyone else was looking for a way to fight it." A hologram showed detailed scans and data streams. "We've noticed something others missed. The anomaly doesn't just destroy. It reacts. It changes behavior based on what we do. The 3rd fleet was destroyed because they went in weapons hot. The mystics couldn't touch it because they tried to force their will upon it." "And what do you propose?" the council leader asked, genuine curiosity replacing the usual condescension in his voice. "We go in slow. We go in careful. We study it up close, with all our ridiculous safety measures and backup plans. We treat it not as an enemy to be destroyed, but as a natural phenomenon to be understood." Silence filled the chamber again, but different this time. The council leader stroked his chin with one of his hands. "And you truly volunteer for this?" "We do," Miller said firmly. "The prudent explorer can be ready in 3 days. We've actually been preparing for something like this since we first detected the anomaly." "Of course you have," someone muttered, but there was less mockery in the tone now. "Very well," the council leader announced. "The humans may attempt their careful approach. But know this, Captain Miller, if you fail, there may not be time for another attempt." Miller nodded. "Understanding that is part of being careful," he replied. "Sometimes being cautious isn't about avoiding danger. It's about respecting it enough to approach it properly." As he walked out of the chamber to prepare his ship and crew, Miller heard the whispers change. They still called humans cowards, but now some of them added, "Maybe that's exactly what we need." The stars awaited, and somewhere out there, a mystery needed solving. Not with guns or mystical powers or advanced technology, but with something the humans had turned into an art form: careful, methodical, respectful caution. And perhaps, Miller thought, that was the bravest approach of all. The prudent explorer wasn't the biggest ship in the galaxy, or the fastest, or the most heavily armed. But as Dr. Ann Roberts walked through its corridors, she knew it was probably the safest vessel ever built. "Another systems check, Doctor?" asked one of the alien observers assigned by the Council. He stood in the doorway of the engine room, his face showing what she had come to recognize as the alien equivalent of a smirk. "Isn't 3 times enough?" "4 times isn't enough when you're flying into something that eats solar systems," Roberts replied, not looking up from her datapad. "And this is actually the backup of the backup systems check." The ship hummed with activity as the human crew ran through their preparations. Every wall panel had an emergency kit behind it. Every corridor had at least 3 escape routes. Every system had 2 backups, and those backups had backups. The alien observers called it paranoia. The humans called it Tuesday. Captain Miller's voice came over the intercom. "All departments, status report." "Engineering ready. All backup systems green," came one reply. "Medical bay prepared. Triple inventory confirmed," came another. "Science team standing by. Redundant sensors active," Roberts reported. One by one, every department reported in. The alien observers watched in a mixture of amusement and growing unease as the humans went through checklists that seemed to go on forever. In the cargo bay, Roberts supervised the loading of the last pieces of equipment. Each piece was checked, double-checked, and then checked again. The alien observer finally lost his patience. "The Dragon Empire's Third Fleet had planet-killing weapons," he said. "What do you hope to accomplish with all these safety measures?" Roberts picked up what looked like a simple probe. "See this? It's got 3 different power sources, 6 ways to transmit data, and can work even if 5 of its 7 sensor arrays fail. The Third Fleet tried to kill something they didn't understand. We're trying to understand something that killed them. And all these backup systems will help." The observer's tone was doubtful. "Let me tell you a story," Roberts said, still working. "Long ago, on Earth, we had explorers who sailed wooden ships across vast oceans. The brave ones who didn't prepare. Most of them died. The successful ones. They checked their ships, brought extra supplies, studied the weather patterns. They were called cowards by some. We call them survivors." The ship's final preparations continued through the day. Each crew member knew their primary role, their backup role, and their backup role. They had run simulations for every possible disaster they could think of, and then some they couldn't think of but planned for anyway. In the ship's main conference room, Miller gathered his senior staff for the final briefing. The wall screens showed their planned approach to the anomaly, with safety margins that made the alien observers roll their eyes. "The Council thinks we're being ridiculous," Miller said, looking at his team. "They say we're wasting time with all these preparations while the anomaly keeps growing. But here's what they don't understand. We're not just being careful for the sake of being careful." He brought up the latest scans of the anomaly. Every safety check, every backup system, every emergency protocol. They're not just about survival. They're tools. They're ways to stay alive long enough to observe, to understand, to solve this puzzle. Roberts nodded. "The Dragon Empire's fleet lasted less than a minute against the anomaly. We plan to stay there for hours, maybe days. Not because we're braver, but because we're better prepared." The alien observers whispered among themselves as they watched the humans go through one final round of checks. Something was dawning on them. Something about the difference between recklessness and courage. As the prudent explorer prepared for launch, Roberts made her way to her station. The walls were covered with emergency procedures, backup plans, and safety protocols. To her, they weren't signs of cowardice. They were the foundations of true exploration. "All stations, final check." Miller's voice came over the intercom. "All stations ready," came the replies, one by one. "Then let's go solve a mystery," Miller said, carefully. The prudent explorer lifted off, carrying its cargo of cautious humans toward the greatest challenge the galaxy had ever faced. They might have been called cowards, but they were about to show the galaxy that sometimes survival wasn't just about being brave. It was about being smart enough to be afraid of the right things and prepared enough to face them anyway. The prudent explorer hung at the edge of normal space, its sensors extended like careful fingers reaching toward the anomaly. The massive purple-black void swirled before them, swallowing light and matter alike. From the main observation deck, it looked like a hole had been torn in the fabric of reality itself. Multiple sensor arrays active, Dr. Roberts announced, her eyes fixed on the streams of data flowing across her screens. All readings are strange. Captain Miller stood at the center of the bridge, his posture calm despite the tension in the air. Define strange, Doctor. The anomaly seems to change every time we look at it, she replied. It's like it knows we're watching. The alien observers on the bridge shifted uncomfortably. One of them, Commander Brightsteel of the warrior clans, stepped forward. The time for observation is over, he declared. We must take action before. Before what? Miller interrupted quietly. Before we understand what we're dealing with. That worked so well for the Third Fleet, didn't it? The commander fell silent, but his expression showed his frustration. The humans had spent 6 hours just sitting at the edge of the anomaly, running test after test, launching probe after probe. Contact from Galactic Council, the communications officer reported. They're demanding a status update. Miller nodded to Roberts, who took over the main screen. We've discovered something interesting, she said, bringing up a complex display of data patterns. The anomaly isn't just destroying things randomly. There's a pattern to it. She highlighted several data streams. See these energy signatures. They change based on how we observe them. When we launched aggressive probes, like the ones designed by the warrior clans, the anomaly reacted violently. But when we sent passive observation drones, the screen showed two very different reactions from the anomaly. In one case, violent energy spikes. In the other, almost gentle ripples. It's responding to our approach, Miller explained. The Third Fleet went in weapons hot, and the anomaly defended itself. We're going in slow, careful, respectful. And it's showing us something different. Roberts nodded excitedly. Look at this pattern here, she said, zooming in on one particular data stream. It's not random at all. It's cycling, repeating, like it's trying to. Suddenly, all the screens flickered. The anomaly pulsed, sending waves of purple-black energy washing over the ship. The alien observers cried out in alarm, but Miller remained calm. Shields holding at 98%, reported engineering. All backup systems ready. Multiple redundant readings confirm no hull breach, added security. And that, Miller said to the stunned alien observers, is why we have triple-layered shields and backup systems. Roberts was practically bouncing with excitement. Captain, look at this. During that pulse, all our sensors picked up the same pattern. It's not just repeating anymore, it's evolving, changing, like it's trying to match our observation methods. Are you saying, one of the alien observers asked slowly, that this thing is trying to communicate? Not trying, Roberts corrected. It is communicating. We just needed to be careful enough, patient enough, to notice. The Third Fleet didn't last long enough to see the pattern. They were too busy trying to destroy it to realize it was reaching out. Miller studied the data carefully. Can you clean up the signal? Figure out what it's saying. Working on it, Roberts replied. But we need to get closer, much closer. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Closer meant deeper into the anomaly's range, deeper into the space where entire solar systems had vanished. The Council won't like this, Commander Brightsteel warned. The Council didn't like us coming here in the first place, Miller reminded him. He turned to his crew. All stations, prepare for closer approach. Maximum shield power. All backup systems on standby. As the prudent explorer slowly edged closer to the anomaly, Roberts continued analyzing the patterns. The alien observers watched in amazement as the humans methodically, carefully, moved deeper into danger, not with war cries or blazing weapons, but with sensors active and shields raised. "You know," Commander Brightsteel said quietly to Miller, "I'm beginning to think we've misunderstood the meaning of courage all these years." Miller smiled slightly. "Courage isn't about not being afraid," he replied. "It's about being afraid and moving forward anyway, carefully." The anomaly pulsed again, stronger this time, its patterns growing clearer with each careful step forward. The humans were about to discover something that all the warrior races of the galaxy had missed. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is take your time. Dr. Roberts hadn't left her station for 12 hours straight. Her eyes were fixed on the complex patterns flowing across her screens, while the massive purple-black anomaly pulsed outside the ship's reinforced windows. Something was hidden in those patterns, something important. "Look at this," she called out suddenly, bringing up a larger display. The bridge crew gathered around, including the alien observers who had grown surprisingly quiet over the last few hours. "What exactly are we looking at, Doctor?" Captain Miller asked, studying the strange, repeating waves of data. "At first, I thought these were just random energy fluctuations," Roberts explained, highlighting different sections of the pattern. "But look here and here and here. It's a sequence, a deliberate one." She typed quickly, and the computer began processing the data in a new way. The seemingly chaotic patterns started arranging themselves into clear, geometric shapes. "It's mathematics," she breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "The most basic language in the universe. The anomaly isn't just sending signals. It's sending equations." Commander Brightsteel leaned forward, his warrior's pride temporarily forgotten in the face of this discovery. "What kind of equations?" "Complex ones. Quantum mathematics. Calculations about the nature of space and time itself." Roberts paused, then added, "But that's not the most interesting part. Look at this sequence here." She highlighted a particular pattern that kept repeating. "This isn't just math. It's a test." Miller raised an eyebrow. "A test?" "Yes. Think about it. The anomaly responds differently to different approaches. It destroyed the aggressive Third Fleet instantly. But when we came in carefully, observing, it started showing us these patterns." Robert's eyes lit up with understanding. "It's like those old stories about ancient temples with traps and puzzles. You had to prove you were worthy before you could enter." The alien observers muttered among themselves. One of them spoke up. "Are you suggesting this anomaly was created deliberately? That someone or something put it here?" "Exactly," Roberts nodded. "And they designed it to respond only to those who approached it the right way. Not with weapons or force, but with patience and observation." Miller studied the patterns thoughtfully. "Can you solve the equations?" "Already working on it," Roberts replied. "Our quantum computers are processing them now. But there's something else." She brought up a new display, showing the anomaly's energy structure. "The way it's constructed, it's not just destroying those solar systems. I think it's storing them somehow, like a massive data drive." The implications hit everyone on the bridge at once. If Roberts was right, all those destroyed systems might still exist, preserved somehow within the anomaly itself. "The Council needs to know about this," Commander Brightsteel said urgently. "Agreed," Miller nodded. "But first, we need to be absolutely sure." He turned to Roberts. "How long until the computers finish processing those equations?" "About 3 hours," she replied. "Assuming nothing goes wrong." Just then, as if the universe had been waiting for those words, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The anomaly's purple-black surface began swirling faster, its patterns changing rapidly. "Energy spike," called out the sensor officer. "The anomaly it's expanding." "Shields holding at 95%, engineering reported calmly. "Backup systems ready." "All departments, status check," Miller ordered, his voice steady despite the crisis. One by one, each department reported in. Thanks to their careful preparation, everything was holding together. The alien observers watched in amazement as the human crew handled the emergency with practiced efficiency. No panic, no shouting. Just careful, methodical responses to each new development. "Captain," Roberts called out, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. "The energy spike. It's not random. Look at the pattern." The main screen showed a new set of equations, more complex than before. The anomaly wasn't attacking them. It was responding to their attempts to solve its puzzle by offering more information. It's like, Robert searched for the right words, like it's testing our ability to handle its knowledge safely. All those backup systems and safety protocols. They're not just keeping us alive. They're proving we're worthy of whatever's stored inside. Miller smiled slightly. So being careful wasn't cowardly after all. It was exactly what we were supposed to do. The prudent explorer hung steady in space as the anomaly continued its complex dance around them. The humans' cautious approach had revealed what countless warrior races had missed. Sometimes the greatest discoveries don't require bravery or strength, but patience, wisdom, and the willingness to solve a puzzle instead of destroying it. "Well," Commander Brightsteel said quietly, "it seems the galaxy has much to learn from Earth's cowards after all." The atmosphere on the prudent explorer's bridge was tense. Captain Miller stood at the center, looking at the main screen where 3 different messages competed for attention. The first was from the Galactic Council, demanding immediate action. The second was from Dr. Roberts' computers, showing the partially solved quantum equations. The third was from the ship's safety systems, warning about the increasing strain on their shields. "We need to make a decision," Miller announced to his gathered crew and the alien observers. "Do we pull back with what we've learned or press forward?" Dr. Roberts spoke up first. "The equations are 60% solved. Whatever's inside that anomaly, it's more advanced than anything we've ever seen. This could be the greatest discovery in galactic history. Or the greatest trap," Commander Brightsteel countered. "Just because it hasn't destroyed us yet doesn't mean it won't." Another message flashed on the screen. The Council again, this time with an ultimatum. They were sending a fleet to deal with the situation if the humans didn't produce results within 6 hours. "They're going to repeat the same mistake as the Third Fleet," Roberts said, shaking her head. "They'll destroy any chance we have of understanding this thing." Miller walked to the window, studying the swirling purple-black void before them. The anomaly's patterns had grown more complex, more urgent, as if it sensed the approaching decision point. "Engineering," he called out. "Status report." "Main shields at 82%, came the reply. "Backup shields ready. Emergency systems standing by. We can hold position for another 12 hours at current power levels." "Medical." "All crew members healthy. Stress levels elevated but within acceptable ranges." "Science team." Roberts answered. "The quantum computers are working at maximum capacity. We're making progress on the equations, but we need more time." Miller turned to face his crew. "Let me be clear about the choice we're facing. If we stay, we risk everything. If those shields fail, we'll join the list of ships that never returned. But if we leave," he gestured to the anomaly, "we might miss the greatest discovery in human history." Commander Brightsteel stepped forward. "Captain, as a warrior, I never thought I'd say this, but your cautious approach has gotten us further than any battle fleet. Perhaps you should trust your human instincts again." Miller nodded slowly, then pressed the ship-wide communications button. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. You all know the situation. Council protocol says we should retreat. Standard safety procedures say we should retreat, but we're not going to do either of those things." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Instead, we're going to do this the human way. Carefully, methodically, with every safety measure we have. Engineering, begin power transfer from non-essential systems to the shields. Medical, prepare for potential quantum exposure scenarios. Science team, you have 5 hours to crack those equations. The crew sprang into action. Even the alien observers found themselves helping, caught up in the methodical efficiency of the human response. Doctor, Miller turned to Roberts. What do you need to speed up the decoding? More processing power, she replied. But we're already at maximum. No, we're not. Miller smiled slightly. We still have the backup computers for the backup computers. Robert's eyes widened. Those are for emergencies only. This is an emergency, just not the kind we expected. He turned to his crew. This is what humans do best. We prepare for everything, then use those preparations in ways nobody expected. Over the next hour, the prudent explorer transformed itself. Backup systems were reproposed. Emergency equipment was modified. Every bit of computing power was directed toward solving the quantum equations. The alien observers watched in fascination as the humans took their excessive safety measures and turned them into tools for discovery. Their cowardly preparation was becoming their greatest strength. Captain, Roberts called out suddenly, I'm seeing something new in the patterns. The anomaly. It's responding to our efforts. It's changing its own equations, making them clearer, like it's trying to help us understand. Miller nodded. Then we made the right choice. We're not retreating. We're not attacking. We're doing this the human way, solving the puzzle while keeping everyone safe. The prudent explorer hung in space, its enhanced shields glowing against the purple-black void, its computers working at unprecedented levels, its crew focused and determined. They had chosen to stay, not with reckless bravery, but with careful determination. Sometimes, Miller thought, the bravest choice isn't charging forward or running away. Sometimes, it's staying exactly where you are, facing the unknown with every safety measure you can muster, and refusing to give up until you understand what's in front of you. We've got it. Dr. Roberts' voice rang across the bridge, breaking hours of tense silence. The final equation. It's not just mathematics. It's coordinates, specific quantum coordinates. Captain Miller leaned over her station, studying the complex patterns that now made perfect sense. Coordinates for what? For here. Roberts pointed to a specific spot in the anomaly's swirling mass. There's a path through the quantum distortions. A safe route, if we follow the exact sequence. The alien observers gathered around, their earlier skepticism replaced by genuine amazement. Commander Brightsteel studied the calculations with wide eyes. Your careful observation revealed what our greatest warriors couldn't find through force, he admitted. A door. Not just a door, Roberts corrected, highlighting more data streams. Look at these energy signatures. Whatever's on the other side, it's massive, and it's active. Miller straightened up, facing his crew. How confident are you in these calculations, Doctor? I've triple-checked everything, she replied. And the backup computers have verified it 4 times. The path is real. But, she hesitated, we'll only get one chance. The quantum corridor will collapse after a single use. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. No way back until they found another way out. The Council fleet will be here in 2 hours, the communications officer reported quietly. Miller nodded slowly. Then we have 1 hour to prepare. I want every system checked, every backup ready, every emergency protocol reviewed. We're going to do this right. The next hour showed the galaxy's cowards at their finest. The human crew moved with practiced precision, methodically preparing their ship for the unknown. Every step was calculated, every possibility considered. Structural integrity fields at maximum. Emergency life support activated and verified. Quantum shields aligned to calculated frequencies. All escape pods programmed with return coordinates. The alien observers watched in silence as their former mockery of human caution transformed into deep respect. This wasn't fear. This was mastery of the unknown. All departments report ready, Miller announced finally. Dr. Roberts, Please explain the procedure one more time. Roberts brought up a detailed diagram. The quantum coordinates create a specific resonance pattern. We need to match it exactly with our shield harmonics while following this precise path through the anomaly. One deviation, and we'll end up like the Third Fleet. And we'll only know if we succeeded when we reach the other side. Miller added. If we make it through, we might find what's been taking those solar systems. If we don't, he let the thought hang unfinished. Commander Brightsteel stepped forward. Captain, I must admit something. When this mission began, I thought human caution was a weakness. Now I see it as your greatest strength. You've turned safety protocols into a key, preparation into a weapon, and caution into courage. Miller smiled slightly. That's the thing about humans, Commander. We're not afraid of being afraid. We just make sure we're ready for what scares us. The moment of truth arrived. The prudent explorer hung at the edge of the calculated quantum corridor, its systems humming with carefully controlled power. All hands, this is the captain. Miller's voice carried through the ship. Everything we've prepared for, everything we've been mocked for, has led to this moment. Our caution has revealed what courage alone could not find. Now we're going to prove that being careful doesn't mean being cowardly. Roberts began the sequence, her fingers dancing across the controls. The ship's shields shifted frequency, matching the quantum patterns perfectly. The anomaly's swirling surface began to change, forming what looked like a tunnel of stable space through its chaos. Path stable, Roberts reported. Quantum resonance matched. We have our window. Miller took a deep breath. Take us in. Nice and slow. The prudent explorer moved forward with deliberate precision. No battle cry, no dramatic charge, just careful, measured progress into the unknown. The ship's hull hummed as it passed through layers of quantum distortion, its triple-layered shields glowing with the strain. Around them, the fabric of space itself seemed to bend and twist, but the ship's careful preparations held true. Step by step, meter by meter, they pushed forward through what no other species had managed to survive. They weren't the fastest ship, or the strongest, or the most heavily armed. But they were the best prepared, the most careful, and, as the galaxy was about to learn, the wisest. The answer to the universe's greatest mystery lay ahead, and humanity's cowards were about to show everyone the true meaning of courage. The prudent explorer emerged from the quantum corridor into a sight that made even the most seasoned crew members catch their breath. Before them floated a massive structure, geometric and perfect, glowing with internal light. And around it, suspended in quantum stasis, were the missing solar systems, intact, preserved, waiting. By all the stars, Commander Brightsteel whispered, they're all here, every single one. Dr. Roberts' hands flew across her console. The structure, it's some kind of repository. The anomaly wasn't destroying those systems, it was protecting them. Captain Miller studied the massive construct before them. Protecting them from what? As if in answer, the structure pulsed once, and a beam of light swept over the ship. The crew tensed, but their shields held steady, yet another vindication of their careful preparation. Captain, Roberts called out, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. We're receiving data. Massive amounts of it. It's a message. The main screen filled with complex symbols that the ship's computers quickly began translating. As the message became clear, understanding dawned on every face on the bridge. It's from the precursors, Roberts breathed. The ancient race we've all heard legends about. They built this sanctuary. The message explained everything. The precursors had foreseen a massive cosmic event, a wave of destruction that would sweep through the galaxy. They couldn't stop it, but they could save what mattered most. They built the repository and the quantum anomaly to protect star systems in its path. But why the test? Commander Brightsteel asked. Why not simply tell us? Miller understood first, because they needed to know who was worthy of this knowledge, Who would approach it the right way? He turned to the alien commander. Imagine if a warrior race had found this place first, seen all this power, and decided to use it as a weapon. Roberts nodded, still reading. The test wasn't just about intelligence or technology. It was about wisdom. About understanding that the greatest power requires the greatest responsibility. The message continued, explaining how to safely restore the preserved systems, how to protect them from the coming wave, and most importantly, how to help others survive it. The Council fleet will be here soon, the communications officer reported. Miller smiled. Send them the coordinates. All of them. Let them see what humanity's cowardice has discovered. Hours later, the Galactic Council chamber was in an uproar, not of panic this time, but of amazement. The prudent explorer's discovery had changed everything. The council leader himself stood before the assembled representatives, making a declaration that would be remembered for centuries. Let it be recorded, he announced, that on this day we learned the true meaning of courage, not from our warrior races, not from our ancient civilizations, but from the humans, those we called cowards. He gestured to Captain Miller and his crew, standing proudly before the council. They showed us that real bravery isn't about charging blindly into danger. It's about facing the unknown with wisdom, preparation, and respect. The council's declaration was unanimous. Humanity would lead the effort to protect the galaxy from the coming wave, using the precursor's knowledge. Their methods, once mocked as cowardly, would become the standard for all species. Back on the prudent explorer, Miller stood with his crew, watching as ships from across the galaxy arrived to help restore the preserved systems. Roberts worked with alien scientists, teaching them the value of careful observation. Commander Bright Steele had become a vocal advocate for what he now called the human approach. You know what's funny? Roberts said to Miller as they watched another system safely return to normal space. We never set out to prove anything. We were just being ourselves. Miller nodded. That's the real lesson here. Courage isn't about changing who you are to match someone else's standard. It's about being true to your principles, even when others mock them. The stars shone brighter that day, as system after system was restored. The galaxy had learned a vital lesson. Sometimes the greatest acts of courage come not with a roar, but with a careful step forward. Not with a sword, but with a sensor array. Not with fearlessness, but with the wisdom to be afraid and proceed anyway. The humans, the galaxy's cowards, had shown everyone a new kind of bravery. And in doing so, they hadn't just saved countless lives. They had redefined what it means to be truly courageous.